What's up, everybody, and welcome to my review of Chucky Season 1. So I, over the past 8 weeks, have done individual reviews as well as a follow-up spoiler show for each of the 8 episodes of this series. And now that we have confirmed a Season 2, and of course because the season is now wrapped, I figured I would do a review of the entire season. Now that I have all 8 episodes to digest, all 8 episodes, a complete story to a certain degree, and we'll get into that I can digest as one thing and kind of analyze as a whole package, it probably would merit talking about the whole season and how all 8 episodes came together for me personally. So for those that might not be a regular viewer of mine, I'm a Chucky fanatic. I've always been a Chucky fanatic. Child's Play 3 was the first horror film that I ever saw and made me a huge fan of the genre as well as the franchise. Chucky and Freddy are my 2 favorites. So I was going into this show very skeptical. I was not a huge fan of Cult, nor was I a fan at all of Seed, and the prospect of this going to Sci-Fi Channel to do a TV series, I just saw nothing but red flags, and pleasantly, I was proven wrong. I did overall like the show. I enjoyed many more episodes than those that I was mixed on or just straight up did not like. There's only honestly one episode in this entire 8 episodes that I just flat out didn't care for at all, and that was unfortunately the finale. So, being that it didn't wrap up in a way that I loved, that did color my response to the whole season a little bit, but there was a lot of things in these 8 episodes for me as a Chucky fan to really enjoy. First of all, I thought that Chucky himself was great. All of the writing, the voice acting, all the interactions with the different characters, and about 80% of the effects work and the animatronics work were really good as well. So Chucky, being that this is a Chucky show for Chucky fans, he needed to be on top, and he absolutely was. To me, this was the best Chucky has been since probably Bride of Chucky, you know, tied along with how good he was in Curse of Chucky, which I'm a big fan of as well, but he being the star of the show, the name of the show, he was the best part, and that's exactly how it should be. So they nailed it as far as the doll. As far as the storyline, I liked how we kind of went back to the corruption of a child, because we haven't really dove into that much since the first 3 films, and they did a good job at going back to that kind of simple format that the series started off with, but doing it in a unique way, to where now he's talking to teenagers, and he's trying to corrupt teenagers that are certainly impressionable and certainly do stupid things and aren't, you know, fully developed as far as upstairs is concerned, but they are much more cognizant of what is going on. They're much more able to discern between right and wrong and be able to ask all these questions about why this fucking doll is talking. And so it's a new take on the old in a lot of ways. So bringing Chucky in, having him start this relationship with Jake, our pretty much main character of the show, somebody who is very traumatized at home, has a terrible upbringing, has, you know, not necessarily secrets, but has a side to him that he's not necessarily embracing fully because of his treatment at home. And Chucky kind of being the way that he does finally embrace his sexuality and embrace who he is and is no longer afraid to be that person is a really interesting thing to do with their relationship. And even the way that Chucky kind of gets into the lives of these other kids in certain ways, namely Junior by the end of the series, I thought that was an interesting take. So as a lifelong fan of this franchise, getting to kind of go back to its roots while doing it in a very different way, I thought they pulled that off mostly well in the series. We got a lot of kills. There was 1 or more deaths every single episode of the series, and that last episode was like 9 or 10 deaths put together in one little sequence. So if you want carnage, if you want Chucky to go around doing what Chucky does, you got a good bit of that in this series. A lot of the kills were pretty good. I like the one with the maid getting impaled with the knives on the dishwasher. There were some other interesting ones regarding decapitations, and there's one with some syringes that was a pretty good little comedic relief style kill. There were some other ones that were kind of throwaways, but you know what? When you're just going for numbers in certain episodes, when it's more about the number of people that he's killing versus how cool the actual kill itself is, that also works to the advantage of a show that's based off of a slasher series. As far as things that I was mixed on, the big one is the flashbacks. I think that there was a couple episodes here where the flashbacks really stood out, namely the one where it shows him actually kill his mother, the one where Chucky finally meets Tiffany, and you've got Fiona Dourif playing the young Charles Lee Ray, which blew my mind when I found that out after watching the episode that was her. And even the one where he's a teenager and kind of doing the whole Peter Pan thing, I thought was quirky and kind of entertaining. All the other flashbacks, I could pretty much take or leave, especially the last few. They just kind of felt like they were thrown in just because. After you get Chucky meeting Tiffany, they didn't know what the hell to do with any of the flashbacks, in my opinion. And the first couple where he was a kid, there really wasn't anything going on. It was just kind of setting up a red herring of what might happen in episode 3, which was eventually revealed that, Charles Lee Ray is just fucked up from the beginning, which is the way it should be. So I will say that Flashbacks, I walked into this show thinking that was going to be the thing I was going to hate the most, or was going to be the most ill-conceived part of the show, and it wasn't anywhere near that. So I was pleasantly surprised that I at least enjoyed half or so of these flashbacks and didn't think that any of them, aside from a little detail that we got in episode 8, that really took away from what we already had with Child's Play. Also incredibly mixed on the usage of our legacy characters, Andy, Kyle, Nika, Tiffany. I think that Nika, by far, is the best utilized one, and it doesn't hurt that Fiona Dourif is by far the best actress in the show, and that's not a slight on anybody else, but she's just blowing our minds every single episode. All the different shades of the different characters that she has to portray and how she gives each one a distinct look, a distinct mannerism, a distinct voice. I think she was incredible. So she's an actress that this show alone shows you she needs to be doing more. I mean, she is great in this series, and if this is her legacy, taking on the role from her father, that's very cool. But as an actress, she is a very huge untapped well of potential. As far as the other 3 characters, Tiffany, I felt like was hamming it up every single time she was on screen, with the exception of maybe 2 interactions, one of which where she was talking with Nika, who was pretending to be Charles Lee Ray. I thought that scene was great. And even one in the finale that was pretty decent, where she's kind of seeming like she's going to take charge and she's going to go against Chucky, but then she kind of doesn't, which one of my big issues with episode 8. But she is the character that they get a lot of that kind of B-movie cheese out of, and they really turn up the campiness. And I don't think that's Jennifer Tilly's fault. I think that's just the way that they write the character. That's the way that the direction that they decided to go with her. And I'm just mixed on that. I like Tiffany better when she's a serious character, when she's an actual intimidating presence, when she's somebody who is just as iconic as Chucky and Charles Lee Ray. And I just felt like she was kind of used for laughs and for jokes and for hamming it up this season. So didn't love the way that they used Tiffany. And as far as Andy and Kyle, I was actually on board with how sparingly they were using them throughout most of this series, to where they were just kind of teasing them at first, and you knew that they were coming eventually. And then the scene that they finally show up in the show when they do that little Pulp Fiction act on that one doll was my favorite scene of the entire 8 episodes. After that scene, though, it felt like the show didn't know what to do with them and didn't even really concern themselves with it. I mean, we get a couple of scenes of them on the road answering a phone call for a few episodes, and then when they finally show up, the amount of Andy and the amount of Kyle that we got in the big finale, to me, was almost unforgivable. I mean, Andy's a character that we've been with since the first movie, and all season long I'm waiting for some big confrontation, some big epic conclusion, or at least a big conclusion of this season itself, between Chucky's, and Andy, and we just never really got that. And then Kyle, I have no idea what the fuck they did with her in the finale. I mean, I don't know if she's dead, I don't know if she's alive, and the way that they handled either version of that is just odd beyond belief. Unforgivable if she's dead, and just odd if she's alive. So by the end of the series, while I like that they focus less on them and didn't use them as a crutch and really let these new characters stand on their own pretty successfully, by the end of the show, I could have used way more, especially from our heroes. And finally, I was really mixed on the portrayal of the central relationship in the show between Jake and Devin. I think that it started off as something really interesting, especially with the way that they give context to how Jake has been treated at home by his father and by his peers at school because of his sexuality and his eventual love/crush on Devin. But as the series went on, as it got to a more serious relationship and it took more of a focus, I just couldn't buy into it. And I do think that that falls on the performances. And again, not that I'm shitting on anybody in this show for their performance level. I mean, these are kid actors. They're just getting started. I totally understood that, and I walked into every episode knowing that. That's why you didn't hear me bitching about acting for 8 weeks straight. But Devin especially, in the scenes between Jake and Devin, just really didn't feel like he was in the relationship. Didn't feel like he was as in love or as invested in Jake as Jake clearly was in him. And so it just felt like it was a disconnect for like the whole last half of this series. And being that that was the big character arc for Jake, especially by the season finale, it just never really landed for me. Now moving on to things that I did not like. The main one is I did not like the utilization of the character of Lexi. I think that they went way too hard and were way too successful from a writing and from a performance standpoint at making us despise this character in the first 3 to 4 episodes, just to make her do a complete 180 and almost with little to no transition go from this despicable character that is 13 years old, but grown-ass adults all around the world wanted her to die violently. That's how much we despise this character. To a character that gives a complete 180 to who she is and is no longer bitchy, is no longer shallow, is no longer moronic in the worst case that a 13, 14-year-old can be. And she's totally friends and even says family with Jake and Devin by the last 2 or 3 episodes. I never bought it. There was a section in the middle there, like episode 4, episode 5, where I knew that's what they were doing, so I kind of just accepted it for what it is and tried to look past it as I went on the ride that the show took me, but they just went way too hard in the last couple episodes, making her just feel like she really tries to love or tries to be almost family with these kids that she hated and made miserable just, like a week prior as far as the timeline of the show. So I never bought into it. I think that they were way too successful at making us hate her in the beginning. If they had toned that down a bit, if they had just went with the costume incident in episode 2 and not hammered home how despicable of a person that she is before and after that, that would have been an easier transition for me to make. A kid makes a stupid decision, does a thing that she thinks is going to be funny, ends up being really fucked up, and then she learns from that and becomes friends with somebody that she didn't realize she had something in common with. I could have went along with that, but they hammered way too hard in the beginning to where there was just no journey back for her as far as I'm concerned. The show also had a really bad habit at introducing intrigue, introducing a mystery, adding some kind of a development to a character or potential development just to literally kill it off. I mean, there was like 2 or 3 times within a couple of episodes to where, like Bree, for example, I always called her Rowan throughout my reviews, to where she has this secret throughout the first 5 episodes, and then it's just randomly revealed in a conversation with her therapist that it was cancer all along. Not all these other interesting possibilities, it's just cancer. And then as soon as they start to do anything with that cancer storyline, they just literally push her out of a fucking high rise. She just dies. Same thing with Devin's mom. You have this detective that from the beginning of the series is suspicious of Jake, and she seems like she's the only cop in town, and she's asking these questions, and it's causing this rift between Devin and her because Devin supposedly loves Jake and all of this. And then as soon as it starts to become a part of a storyline to where Devin can confide in his mom, or there's actually going to be some kind of a change in her character, she falls off the stairs and breaks her neck. And there's even things regarding the city of Hackensack and all this buildup about what is Chucky's plan? Why is he in this neighborhood? Why these people? There's got to be some kind of a reason, right? Some kind of a past event with one of the parents, like Freddy Krueger style, or some reason, some tie that he has that has him specifically going after this town. Nope, he just needed any kid to kill somebody. Don't give any explanation for that, by the way. It's just, you're told, oh, well, there was some voodoo thing, I needed a kid to kill somebody, and that allowed me to do what I did pretty fucking easily in Cult of Chucky, but now I had a hindrance. There was so many moments, especially in the last few episodes, where it just felt like the show had something going for itself and then just killed it off. I don't know if that was purposeful to subvert expectations, or if us as viewers just built up plot lines too much in our heads, but a lot of lingering questions, a lot of storylines, a lot of character arcs just felt unsatisfying by the end of the show for me. And my final negative is that this series decided to do the Walking Dead style ending with this season, in that they don't really resolve hardly any of the storylines going on. They resolve maybe 25-30% of what's going on throughout the 8 episodes, and they leave all of the giant lingering plot lines, all the big questions that we've been asking for episodes upon episodes, lingering until the next season. And I don't know if that was purposeful because they got a season 2. I don't know if there was alternate takes where maybe there was a definitive one if they weren't renewed, or if they didn't get confirmation of a renewal and then they swapped it out. It just felt artificially cut off in that final episode, even to the point where Chucky comes on as the Crypt Keeper and kind of trolls the audience, where he gives himself a kill count, says, oh yeah, anyway, besides me and all my kills, all these things that you guys are asking, see you next year. I thought that was a terrible way to end that episode and to end that season. So as somebody that's been on board for this show for quite a while and has enjoyed, for the most part, every single episode leading up to the finale, I felt very unsatisfied with pretty much every way that they decided to close off or answer things, and very dissatisfied with the way that they decided not to close off and answer things. So overall, guys, I do think this was a good season overall. Unfortunately, a lot of the things in the last couple episodes, especially the finale, really did drop my rating overall of this season quite a bit. I'm still on board. I'm still excited for a season 2. I would still encourage horror fans and especially Chucky fans to check this show out and support it. I mean, we've got a season 2, but continue to support it so that when season 2 drops, and hopefully they improve a little bit on some of the things that bugged me, we'll easily get a season 3. I think that this is, aside from Curse of Chucky, which I'm still a big fan of, the best thing that we've gotten of the Don Mancini-centric era of Chucky, aside from Curse. And it did do a lot of things right. It even actually made me like Cult a little bit more, as far as making me accept the splintering your souls into multiple dolls storyline, because it was utilized in a pretty good way in the series. So as a Chucky fan, I enjoyed the series. Also had some serious issues with it, but it's still something I would encourage all of you to check out. So now the entire series is available to stream on Peacock, and presumably that's where the show is going to remain going forward from season 2 onward. So check it out online and stream it. So what did you guys think of season 1 of Chucky? Are you a huge Chucky fan, for one, and did you love this show? Did you hate it? Were you somewhere in the middle? How did you feel about the finale and how they wrapped up and didn't wrap up certain things? And where do you want to see season 2 go? Also, if you want more in-depth takes on every single episode in this series, throughout this video, I probably put a playlist, Chucky TV reviews. I've done all 8 episodes of my own initial reaction, as well as about an hour-long spoiler talk with guests and my co-host CP on all 8 episodes. So ton of backlog content for the show, as well as a lot of reviews and rankings of the actual movie series. So if you're a Chucky fan, hit that subscribe button, because I promise you I'm nowhere near done making Chucky content on this channel. Be sure to like and share this video. Contribute to my Patreon page if you enjoyed this and want to see me do more and help financially with me being able to expand and do more. And as always, guys, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.